Hi, and welcome to the Rare Business Podcast. My name is Adrian Swinsko, and I'm a consultant, advisor, researcher, and writer on all things related to customer service and customer experience. Through this podcast, I seek out and interview CEOs, entrepreneurs, business and tech leaders, and leading thinkers about what it takes to build organizations that produce better outcomes for both customers and employees in this fast-moving modern age that we live in. If this is your first time listening to one of these interviews, then welcome, and please do dive into the archives at adrianswinsko.com, as I've now completed over 250 of these interviews in the last few years. If this is not your first time listening, then thank you for returning, and I'll aim to do a good enough job to keep you coming back week after week. Anyway, that's enough from me right now. Let's get into the interview. Hello and welcome to the Rare Business Podcast. Today I have with me Alex Genov, who is Head of Customer Research at Zappos here in Las Vegas. Hi Alex, how are you doing?
Hi Adrian, good to be with you.
So Alex, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the work that you do?
Sure, Adrian. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And so I'm heading up customer research for Zappos. We're a group within Zappos that try to understand our customers as people. Mm-hmm. And we work hand in hand with another group that handles big data and transactions. And we are kind of fit like a puzzle together, right?
Okay.
We complement each other in terms of the big data, and then we provide insights into how people think, what they feel. We do a lot of surveys for that. We do a lot of different kinds of research. You can call it small data maybe. Mm-hmm. It's quantitative, it can be qualitative. It's all solid, valid research. And that's what we do for Zappos here. My background is in experimental social psychology, and that kind of to a big extent forms my views and my approach, which is focusing on emotions and studying them and understanding how they get generated, how you can measure them in a valid way, and also individual differences. Okay. And that kind of forms the foundation of approaching things like personalization, like understanding customer needs. It's always starting with how well do you know your customer.
Sure.
And if you have a large enough customer base, you can bet that people are going to be different within that. So that's what we do here.
Perfect. So first of all, thank you for making some time to see me. I mean, I was in Vegas for other reasons, but I saw you quoted in an article, I think it's for the CMO magazine in Australia, and I just went, brilliant, because it was about Zappos' approach to personalization. I went, send you a note, Alex, I'm going to be there, can we talk? And which is brilliant, so you said yes. But I wanted to ask you about, in that the article it says, Zappos is a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. That was the original sort of motto, and which I think is brilliant, but you've extended it, and the article says that happens to sell shoes and clothes and handbags and accessories, but its DNA is customer centricity. So that, I mean, I think that's always been a really interesting sort of approach, so turning it back to front, like we're service first and then we do these things. Right. So how does that approach, that sort of orientation, affect or inform how you approach personalization?
For sure. Well, Adrian, first of all, I cannot take credit for the statement. No. It's Tony Shea, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's the leader of Zappos, and it's kind of a brilliant, very, very bold statement, right? Because it follows the whole start with why. Simon Sinek's why do we exist is to serve our customers, to provide a great customer service, and then how we do it through investing in customer service versus cutting down on that expense, right? Considering it an expense, and then at the moment we happen to sell shoes and clothes. We used to sell other things, we may do other things, just like Apple, right? They were Apple computer first, then they dropped the computer. They're now making watches. They may be doing toothbrushes tomorrow, who knows, combs, like
cars, who knows where they're going to go.
Exactly, so that is the DNA. And then in terms of personalization, of course, our customer service is unmatched, and that's what makes Zappos Zappos. Is when you call on the phone, there's no, we pick up right away. There's no limits as to the call time. One time a customer service rep or customer loyalty team Even the name kind of. Even the name denotes what the purpose is, right? Creating loyalty. So that person spoke for more than 10 hours with somebody on the phone. They took 2 bathroom breaks or something like this. Of course, this is, it's an outlier.
Yeah.
But there's no limits and there's no scripts. The main requirement is to create an emotional connection. So to, of course, help you, number one, but also to avoid awkward silences, not putting you on hold, to try to chit chat. If somebody is in a rush, they don't want to chit chat, leave them be, and so on. So that
being
is
sensitive to that.
Being sensitive. That's the personalization, and
right.
We get the best of the best in that area.
Okay.
We train them really well, and then you get this great experience. We make you laugh. I mean, I was helping a woman on the phone. She was shopping for jeans, and I said straight up, my only reference is how my wife wears her jeans. She was laughing. We chit-chatted, we looked at some jeans, and at the end, I don't know if I helped her, but she laughed and she seemed happy, right?
Yeah.
So that's the approach, and it's of course very personal, and it's very personalized. Now the opportunity to develop this down the road is to carry this over to maybe the next phone call, right? And to not to lose that continuity. So that's where we're working towards in terms of personalization on the phone, so that maybe next time you call, I can reference some notes and say, how was your trip, right? And hit this. Even a higher level of personalization would be to request, let's say, I want Adrian again to help me, right? And request you as my...
So that might be it. You end up getting... So you can actually ask something, or are you going to try and do intelligent routing so you can try and...
That's the future, right? At this point, it's... But that's one of the examples, right? So here's the big challenge, and that's why I joined Zappos, was I'm excited about the digital customer experience as well. And now we have hundreds of millions of visitors on the websites and millions and millions of customers that don't call. So for those folks, how can we recreate that experience, personal experience on the website?
Can I just ask a quick question? It's like, how many, what's the percentage split of terms of customers transacting on the website and actually people kind of calling now? I mean, is it still is still a large part of your business done on the phone over the kind of direct sales on the website, or is that
the vast majority of the business is on the website, right? We don't have that many people calling at any one time, and that's what makes it possible to provide a great service. Because otherwise, at some point, things get, the scale becomes really a challenge. So,
but I guess if you take that approach of designing a website so it serves, and then it just translates into making it easy and easy to use. Okay.
And that is the challenge, is to how to create or design a product that maybe will result in an experience. So, can you introduce some kind of dialogue on the website?
Right.
And I'm not talking about specific solutions like Clippy. Everybody makes fun of Clippy. I think the intent was good, and then now is avatars, now chatbots and all that stuff. These are solutions.
Right.
That's the how. Focusing on the what, it's a dialogue. It's a back and forth. How do you create that? The first step, right?
Okay.
Is to say, hey, Adrian, why are you here, right? And here's one point of view of personalization is I make a distinction between best guess recommendations driven by AI, by machines that observe where you're clicking, what you're looking at, and they make a guess. A few challenges with that. The account may be shared.
Yes.
Right? So who's looking, first of all? Secondly, what was your mindset when we were looking, right?
Yeah.
And so the result of that is usually this kind of idiotic thing of, I just bought this pair of shoes, thank you for that, now how about buying another pair of shoes just like that? Here's what other people bought.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, your mindset may be, I don't care what other people buy. And the other one is, I just bought these shoes, you want me to buy more? So to contrast this with this is an approach where we understand why are you buying these shoes?
Right.
What's behind it? And then if you understand you're going to a wedding, right? And we know where you're going to a wedding, Then we can say, well, you know what? Oh, it's a wedding on the beach. Great, right? Lucky you. Did you think of the sunscreen, right? And
Right.
Or you're going to London, but do you have an umbrella?
Right.
And that's something that we can offer you.
So appropriate.
It's the full picture, right?
Okay.
It's the understanding what you want to accomplish. Or for example, if you say, you know what, I got a promotion now, I want to dress to present more authority. Right?
Okay.
Okay, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Maybe this color scheme will go, whatever it is, right? Just like a personal stylist would go, you know, if somebody is a bit shorter, maybe the cut of the suit makes a difference. Like
Sure.
if it's cut this way versus this way, it's going to make you look taller. So that to me is personalization, is understanding what you want to accomplish, and just asking a few questions. I have another anecdote. When I was buying from a European designer, bought a jacket in the store.
Okay.
It was deeply discounted, so my wife said, you know, buy it, and of course I would say yes. And high-end designer, bought the jacket, turned out to be the largest size. And then I knew the size, so I bought another jacket online, that size, and with that came a nice little leaflet, expensive one looking, right, and spend money on it, and it was talking about gentlemen 6'6", 6'3" to 6'6", right?
Yeah,
and
you're not 6'3".
Exactly, right, exactly. So, and they were cracking jokes about we never fall short and on and on. So they ended up looking like fools because they didn't ask me how tall are you, and I was gonna, I could enter that information,
Sure.
right? But they assumed. So that's the thing, is these assumptions are a big danger, and again, you cannot average people. So what is the interplay? To a large extent, you can personalize based on common data. For example, if you're in a certain geographic area,
Sure.
you know, everybody experiences the same weather. Okay, you can make some assumptions in terms of the demographic in the area. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the more personal you get, you cannot avoid just asking people.
Right. And so the thing that I'm really interested in is that, well, first of all, is where are you at in your development of your approach? I mean, is this do you see that it's a journey, and you're actually we're starting to figure it out and kind of like to experiment? Are you early stages and you're kind of learning, or do you think you're actually quite far down the road and sort of near to the end? Or give me an idea.
It's early stage. It's at the beginning of the journey, and again, it's a very nice interplay between developing the technology and the algorithms, and we have a brilliant team of data scientists.
Right.
We have a ton of data. And we're lucky with a huge, you know, base of loyal customers, and we're part of Amazon.
Yeah.
And data privacy and security is a number one priority.
Sure.
Like it's for Amazon. So that's the table stakes. There's no question about data privacy and security is guaranteed. Right now, beyond that. So we have those algorithms, but we talked about the small data and understanding customers. So here's an interesting story of how we came up with an insight. Everybody loves personalization. So you say, okay, it's a big company priority and so on.
Yeah.
So as an empiricist, at some point it dawned on me, we collect these voice of the customer surveys. They're on the website, so customers give us feedback.
Sure.
They fill out a very brief questionnaire. And then it dawned on me, wait a minute, we're not measuring how people feel about personalization, whether, right? And let's start, you know, and so I asked the question, how do you feel, how personalized we feel Zappos is? And then I asked an open-ended question, why? So we looked at some of the data initially, and they were giving us extremely high marks, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I mean, the website is, at this point, is early, and then we read about great customer service, and all these reasons that have nothing to do with the way we think of personalization, right? And so it said, okay, now we have to follow it up with a more in-depth research. So we did that more in-depth research, and guess what? We found that a big chunk of our customers, they say basically, use my data.
Right.
You know what I'm doing, use my data. Another huge chunk of our customers, guess what? They say, forget it. I want to be anonymous.
Right.
Right? What's behind it? Most likely trust and all that stuff. Trust for business, trust for retail in general.
Yeah.
This was a big epiphany, and a whole bunch of customers asking us, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? And when they said, who's your number one, kind of paragon for personalization, it was Amazon.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a big insight for us. So the imperative is, before we assume that you want personalization and curation, we have to ask you.
See, yeah, that's really interesting, because I think that it creates there's this preference, if you like, vector, which because like you said before, there's assumptions around that people want it or they don't want it, or people start to make this kind of it's like a psychographic sort of preference kind of like scale, which goes you're completely shut down and private, or you're completely open, and there's nothing in between. It's like a binary switch, which is nonsense. And there are gradients in that, in terms of some people are like, we're okay with some people, and not with others.
Exactly.
All the way through to somebody that's completely open or on one side, and then all the way through to somebody is completely closed on everything.
Exactly.
And some people are, well, I'm going to change my mind depending on what day of the week it is.
That's exactly right. So it's just like interpersonal relations. I'm sure you have people in your life that know everything about you, and you have people that you don't want to know anything about you. And it may change, right? I mean, some people may disappoint you, and you may pull away, right? So it's all a matter of this called trust of that's been created or ruined by businesses that use your data for their own benefit, right? And even dark patterns, even kind of it can go all the way, right? So and when we through research we work with designers and so on, our message is always, you can ask for information from customers, but right away give them something back. Give them value. When you provide the value, give them something little, give them back, and they're going to give you more and more. So I'm absolutely certain that for some people, I mean, if somebody's totally paranoid, they're never going to they want to be off the grid, that's fine. But for people that are probably not very trusting initially, when we see how, when they see that how we help others, or maybe we say something like, hey, we have so many products, give us a little bit of information, we'll help you narrow down your choice, whatever. With time, I'm sure we can win them over. And
so that means, do you then, in your approach, do you then have it's almost like have somebody on a scale or have them classified or tagged as in terms of their privacy or personalization sort of preferences? Have you gone that sort of far to try and group kind of people to then that informs an approach?
So no, I mean, not at that point. I think it will happen naturally when we have this functionality on the website that you opt in or opt out, or something like this. So again, this dialogue. Right. When you're willing to engage in that dialogue. So for example, we have links, and some of them are buried, kind of, to be honest, of giving you feedback. Yeah. Some people look for them, they find them. Yes. They click on them and they engage with the dialogue, in dialogue with us. It's just like calling on the phone. That's kind of the most personal. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, not a lot of people are willing to talk on the phone, right? And especially with new generation, so on, it's text, and they prefer this kind of offline, you know. So when we enable that kind of dialogue on the website through whatever widgets you call it, whatever you call it, but then you'll see somebody who says, close this and never show it to me again. Yeah. Or they close it 3 times and they say, look, we feel like you want your privacy. Do you want us to never show it to you again? Fine, right? Okay. So that will then lead to the classification, the natural behavior, versus doing a survey and then the survey would be a hypothetical. Do you trust companies? And then you're gonna give us an answer. Right. But then in the moment, then you get so frustrated, maybe looking for things, and say, let me try. And then you see the value, and then you change your mind. Right. So what it seems to me what you're saying is that many other companies go about personalization. They make assumptions and then the best guesses without actually. But you're saying that's just all it is best guesses.
and it can lead to pissing people off or being creepy or whatever. But actually, what you're saying is actually we're trying to take a more dialogue-led approach to help the customers then inform us how they would like to be kind of treated.
That's
so
one approach. That's
okay.
and so there are two things that you mentioned. One is the best guess is some of them work really well. So we have functionality on the website now that says, here's other shoes like this one. So this one is out of stock, let's say, and we have similar styles, and that technology works beautifully. I personally, these are similar shoes like this one, and I appreciate that. Or Amazon has people bought also this together with.
Well, exactly. I mean, did you? And Amazon has been doing that for the longest time. Like that sort of other things that you bought or connected things that you bought, so recommended sort of thing. I mean, does some of the stuff that they do informs the approach that you take?
For sure. I mean, we use a lot of that same technology.
Right. Okay.
But here's the difference: is technology that's built for the everything store, right? May not apply one-to-one when you work with these really personal, highly personal items like clothes and shoes, like they represent you.
Yeah.
Versus buying a toaster, right, is a little bit different. That may go with something else, or one book goes with a similar book from the same author or something like this. That works. So in some cases those best guesses work, but then the creepiness factor is where my hypothesis is that it's a matter of trust. Creepy again is like experience. Like it's creepy for somebody, not creepy for another person.
So you're not going to do that sort of thing where, like, there was a piece of research that came out, and it was two-sided research which said it was talking to customers and then to brand marketeers, and they asked customers about sort of some of these brands' personalization efforts, and about 75% of them said, most of this stuff is creepy because I'm on here, I'm trying to do this sort of stuff, and then they track me around the web, all that sort of stuff. And then they went and asked the brand marketeers, and about 2/3 of them admitted that some of the tactics they use were creepy. And it's almost a bit like there's that sort of line, and it's almost a bit like, and this is another question I wanted to get your opinion on, is that because some of the technology and some of the tools are so powerful, it's easy to step over the line, and I wondered, it's like, because of the way that Zappos is, and it's very driven by this is what we're about and these are our values, is that become your starting point in terms of your filter, and sort of helps you understand like where's the line, and this is what we don't cross.
Exactly. And again, bring it to interpersonal relations. What if there's a shadowy figure observing you from the bushes, right, and then offering you some products down the road? You don't know that person. You kind of have a feeling they're watching you, versus somebody who you have permission. Let's talk, and you go to Nordstrom, and there's very helpful personal assistants. They're friendly. They observe you, and then they see that you're kind of frustrated. They approach you then, right? Or if they see that you want to be left alone, they leave you alone, and then they offer you help, right? That's
so your efforts are only going to be are limited to visitors to your website, people that kind of call you, or people that you have email sort of contacts sort of ways. Is that it, or does it extend beyond?
Well, I mean, it's, if we're talking about the digital experience, we can only touch people who visit our websites and mobile phones, right? So it's.
But you're not going to track people around the web.
So I can't speak for marketing technology and efforts, but it's again it has to be, if it's perceived to be creepy, that ruins trust, and that's the kernel. That is,
okay. And so the other thing I was thinking about is that one of the biggest discussions around in this whole personalization and data and privacy and security is actually very much being driven by some of the stuff that's been going on in Europe right now with GDPR, and it's almost like there's somebody's taken a big rock and dropped it in and it's just created ripples around the world. I mean, it sounds like we were talking about before, and it sounds like data security and privacy is at the very heart of kind of what you guys do and what Amazon does. So have you seen any impact on that? Well, you don't really do business outside the US that much anyway, but has the advent of GDPR made you reappraise kind of where you're at and things, or is it just you've just gone, actually we're okay?
No, even before that, following Amazon's, I mean, for Amazon, data privacy security is number one. Jeff Bezos has said, without this we have nothing.
Right.
So it's number one priority, and as part of, even before we were part of Amazon, this was a huge priority, and now it's almost like there's no question about it. There's no, right, it's not an option.
No.
It's not. So data privacy and security is, in every aspect, is ironclad, right? As much as possible, and so that's not negotiable. Then beyond that, it's this whole thing about asking permission and so on, and of course, reaching out to people. We only reach out to people who have agreed to be reached out via email and so on. When we do our research, we make sure that we kind of follow those filters that are applied. When we have people sign up, we have a customer panel, for example, that our customers voluntarily sign up. It's completely voluntary, just to give us feedback.
Right.
When they say, I want out right away, it's these following their wishes, essentially.
It does seem to me that the advent of GDPR, particularly in Europe, and then how it's affected other companies around the world, is making them really. So the good companies that have good intent and have good practices, they've got nothing to worry about.
Right.
It seems it's been a big shock to a whole bunch of people that they're trying to buy data or lists or cold call people or spam email things, and it's like it feels to me, whilst it might be inconvenient for some companies, it feels like it's making trying to clear out some of the bad practices or some of the shoddy, lazy thinking, complacency, and that sort of stuff.
That's it. And you know what? I think, Adrian, the issue is, for some companies, the product is the data.
Right.
Right. And our product is shoes and clothes and handbags and accessories. Right. And so I think it's much more tricky for companies that, if product is data, they're gonna try to sell your data.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. And then when and they always say, you sign up for it because it's free, so you kind of implicitly agree, but right, and at some point the question is how these data used, and then you get all these conflicts and all these really bad things that can happen.
So tell me about what's your future plans for sort of the personalization? Well, what's the story arc or the aim for sort of Zappos and kind of personalization? You just give us a sense of like what you're trying to achieve, as it were.
It's again working hand in hand with our colleagues from the big data side, data scientists, data science, and that's kind of where the magic happens when we collaborate. And so it is, again, using the research, the insights. Ask for permission first.
Right.
When you design the interface, enable for a dialogue. Don't assume, right? And so put all these things in place and start small. For some things it really makes sense for simple questions like, are you shopping for yourself? Are you shopping for others? Then what's your gender? Let us help you narrow down. There's so much choice that.
And so that reminds me of something. I had a conversation with somebody a while ago, and they were doing some work in sort of intelligent sort of chatbot type stuff. And the thing that they said to me was, most of these chatbots, when they're just automated ones, most of them fail really quickly because what they don't do is they guess at context. And actually, if you ask the question about context, that you end up sort of just narrowing down or actually zooming in very quickly on the success factors. And you get a couple of questions and then poof, you're...
Right, exactly. And in some cases it's very straightforward. So for example, in this business, gender matters, right? So right away you can, if you're shopping for yourself, you're a guy, why should I be looking at all these high heel shoes, right?
Yeah, sure.
Gender, your size, right? And another kind of, you asked for some areas where you focus is sizing. It's a big issue, and Zappos has been a leader in this business because of the generous return policy, because we recognize things don't work out necessarily, and in the store it's very easy. They bring a bunch of boxes and they take it back. It's fine, it's done. Whereas online you have to return and so on, and we make that super easy and painless. But it's still inconvenient, right? It's still disappointment. So how can we, based on, again, big data, your input, again, asking things like, for example, looking at the data, but also saying, okay, what sizes in these brands fit you?
Right.
Simple questions, and okay, based on that now...
And you can take that and you can match that. And you
take the answer, and so always ask for these. We're not making you fill out a 40, 60-page questionnaire or something like this. So that's one thing. And so then again, refining search again, because we have so much choice, and how can we help you narrow that down? So I think that's where.
So that could be it's almost like refining. If you can refine the context and the information and the dialogue, then you can narrow it down and it becomes increasingly helpful in the personalization efforts. But it's driven by that dialogue.
Exactly, and some things are straightforward. Some things are more tricky, like how do you want to feel when you wear these things, or right? And
then that's the thing, you get into the sort of the emotional side of stuff. So it's less about kind of the functional sort of demographic sort of stuff, and then it becomes about the occasion and how they want to feel and all these different things.
This is it. I think if we get just stuck in the mode of shopping,
it's just
shopping has been invented. Like retail, like online shopping is like a shopping cart. Here's products, find them, put them in the cart, check out. I mean, this is. I think it's kind of a lost battle to try to compete there. But what hasn't been done? How can you create or design the interface for an experience?
Sure.
Meaning, how do you want to feel? Right. It's a personal thing. So again, from our research, qualitative visits, home visits, we visited 20 homes.
Right. With
people's permission.
Yeah.
Right.
No breaking in.
No. And we talked to people, and some would say, a guy who said, I'm in the next stage of my life and career, and I want to change my wardrobe for this. Or a woman that just had a baby, and then she had to change her wardrobe, and then, or maybe she wants to replenish the wardrobe, but it's ultimately about how you want to feel.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest insights was we talked to this woman, and usually you think you dress how you feel. Well, she said, no, I dress because I want to feel a certain way.
Yes.
So she would put in this unusual, really interesting piece, and then people will talk to her.
Yes.
And that was the intent.
Right.
See, that's very, very different. So
the clothes or the shoes become a tool
exactly.
to achieve something.
They are always. For some people, it's just I need to have something on.
Yeah.
But for some people, they have, and so in this case, imagine if that was the dialogue on the website was, hey, how do you feel today?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, not so great, let me help you feel a little bit different. Try this.
And when you're doing all that, do you think that you'll get to the point where you'll try and use sort of AI and automated sort of tools to help with that sort of dialogue, or do you think that a lot of that's still going to be human driven in the first bit, but with enabled by technology, or will you end up sort of increasingly use kind of sort of automated?
I think automation is where to scale you need automation, and I think it's absolutely possible. I think technology can do anything, but the problem has been when you start with the algorithm, and then you try to fit the experience.
Yeah.
Whereas start with the ideal experience and then write code to match that.
Right.
So in some cases, one of my favorite examples is when we had to reset routers, the wireless and so on. We would call the company, and some guy who looks at or a woman who looks at the series of steps and reads it off to you.
Yeah.
Unplug this and let me know when you're done. And then one time I was called them, and it was a computer, and said, "Hi, I'm a computer and I'm going to help you." and then say do this, and then press 1 when you're done. And I said at the end, if I haven't helped you, I've connected to a person. I'm like, that's great. I don't need a person to read these steps. A computer can read these steps.
And it's not the best use of their time, and it's probably going to get pretty boring.
And then I have a person sitting there, and I don't want to chit chat at that point.
Yeah.
So this is perfect, right? And where are the limits? So if you have the ideal experience in mind, like you're emulating an interpersonal interaction.
Yeah.
At some point, and sometimes you can hit this whole thing of the uncanny valley where it's kind of like person, but not really. So it gets the creepiness factor.
Yeah.
But how far, that's the challenge, how far can you go to emulate the personal experience with technology? And I think it can be done, it's just the efforts are not at this point focused on that. People say, well, Clippy was done, ha ha ha, it was funny, so they dismiss it.
Yes.
Or they do chatbots poorly, they say it doesn't work. Again, focusing on the how and then not... and dismissing the what because of that.
Yeah, that's fine. So if I was to say to you, Alex, that there are probably people listening into this conversation, and they're in the service experience sort of space, and they're thinking about personalization, and they're thinking about trying to make their efforts kind of better, but they sometimes struggle with that. They're not getting necessarily the right sort of outcomes. I mean, what sort of advice would you give to people based on what you've learned, one, your research, and also what you've learned with the whole Zappos experience so far?
Sure, absolutely, Adrian. So it's a very simple, very powerful message. It's understand your customers as people and work with the technology side. The technology is the how.
Yeah.
Figure out the what and understand your customers as people. And I have to give credit to an Italian design professor, Roberto Verganti, who I met when I was at Intuit.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, if you want to really innovate, forget about the users. And his whole point was users are not the people. The caller is not the person. The person who clicks on the website, the person who converts is not the person. It's people in different aspects, in different contexts. Who's the person behind that, right? And understand, and that's why you need to bring in psychology. You need to bring in that human side.
You need to bring in home visits and go and see people in their real kind of their real life.
Exactly, and then you need to then have these are anecdotes, maybe case studies, and you say how does it apply to, and then you have to bridge it.
Sure.
Do the inferential statistics and all that, because you're not designing for just 20 people. You're designing for millions. So that's where, but without doing that combination,
you're kind of almost like designing for failure in many ways, or you're actually not designing. You're not optimizing your the possibilities. You're almost like limiting the possibilities.
Exactly.
If you see people as just a user or a caller or a buyer or whatever, then you're not seeing the whole person, and therefore you're not seeing the whole opportunity.
Right, exactly, and then that's where you're doing the average coffee, which is gonna kind of suck for everybody.
Exactly. So on the personalization stuff, I mean, is there anything else that you think that people should pay attention to that we've sort of not covered before I ask you my last question?
I think, that's what we talked about. Things. The most important thing is just pay attention to the person.
Perfect. So my last question, Alex, I always ask, most of the time I ask at the end of these interviews, and I've done in excess of about 260 of them now.
Wow.
And the question is this: is there anything you would like to shamelessly plug?
No, I don't think so. It's buy shoes from Zappos. I don't know.
Yeah.
Keep us in business. I don't know.
Brilliant. That's which is not great for me because I live in the UK and you're not. Right. You don't trade outside outside the US. But hey ho, then never mind. But Alex, thanks very much. That's been really interesting and insightful. And thanks for your time and sharing your thoughts with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, that's it for another interview. I really hope you enjoyed it. Now, every time I complete one of these interviews, I learn something new, and I try and incorporate that new learning into my writing, my speaking, my workshops, and the consulting that I do for my clients. If you're interested, you can find out more about how I work with clients over at adrianswimsko.com. But one final thing before I go, please please consider heading over to iTunes or whichever podcast platform you choose to use, and do leave a review. Every little helps, as they say. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and do listen in again. All the very best.